Good evening, everyone, and happy Good Friday. Welcome to the Feminine Drive. How you doing? On behalf of the Gael family, we say happy Good Friday. And what does Good Friday really represent? I mean, the little knowledge that I have, Good Friday represents rejuvenation, victory. It represents victory, yes? Rejuvenation, love, respect. And for me, regardless of the system, for me, I think each and every one of us could use those attributes. Yes, we can use respect, love, well-being, victory in our lives, in our different challenges. So let's take from the occasion the positive attributes. As I said, regardless of your belief system, for me, I take the good out of anything. That's how I live my life. I believe that in any situation, I can pull positive something that is applicable to me, and therefore I take it and apply it to my life. So, for what it's worth, I would like to say Happy Good Friday to Trinidad and Tobago and to the Christian community, to those of you who celebrate the meaning of Good Friday in terms of, I have some friends who would go to the different stations and all that, regardless. However you celebrate it, respect to all, love from the Feminine Drive. So, well, for the greater part of Trinidad and Tobago, for everybody, it's a public holiday and we inside. The roads were quite clear coming here. So, gosh, boy, if only the roads could remain like that, because I hate traffic. It was really easy breezy coming to the studio. But this evening, we are going to discuss autism because today, not yesterday, April 2nd is World Autism Day. Yes, the awareness. And I know a lot of you probably wondering, well, what is autism? But I'm not going to talk too much about that. I'm not an expert in the field. And I have someone in studio with me who may not be a trained professional in the field, but I told her, so listen, you are the mother of 2 autistic children. For me, that makes you a professional. You didn't have to go and do the studies, and have MD behind your name. For me, raising 2 autistic children successfully, balancing that with your corporate life and everything else, that makes you a professional. So we're going to go for a short commercial break. We just take the commercial break up front. So that will give you time to WhatsApp your friends, share the video, right? Tell them the Feminine Drive is on. So we're going to go for a short commercial break, and when we come back, we'll have our beautiful guests telling us more about autism. Stay tuned.
Hey. Just because you cannot jet away doesn't mean you cannot get away. I know you want to get away because the lockdown every day have you stressed out in every way. But here's what you can do. Spend a night at any participating guest house in Trinidad or Tobago and qualify to win free groceries and a weekend for 2 with breakfast at another property. Here's how to win. It's the Gael Staycation. Here's what you do. Book your stay. Spend a night. Take a picture of your room the first time you see it. Take a picture of your breakfast. Take a picture of you having fun. Well, not in bed, of course. And make a 2-minute video telling us how great the location is. Send us your pics and your video, and you can win groceries for 6 months and a weekend stay at a different property or the same one you enjoyed. This promotion runs from February 15th to May 15th. The more places you stay, the better your chances to win. Visit Gael Staycations on Facebook for more details.
Welcome back to the Feminine Drive. So we inside. Did you tell your friend that the Feminine Drive is on? You send the WhatsApp. You like and share the video, the live. Because we need to make persons more aware. Yes? So joining me in studio this evening is my lovely guest, Lyra Thompson. Lee, how are you this evening?
I'm great. Thank you so much, Empress, for having me.
Nice. Oh gosh, I love that. Empress. I always love it when people call me Empress. So how the Good Friday? Before you go further, let me thank you for taking time from your Good Friday schedule to join me on the Feminine Drive, because I know you are a staunch Catholic, as we would say. And you went to Mass and had to hurry home to get here. Not so?
Yes,
I really appreciate that. I really, really
Not a
appreciate that.
problem at all.
And taking it away from your children. I appreciate that very, very much. So welcome again.
Thank you so
Yes.
much.
So today is World Autism Day.
Yes, it is.
And, it's not a subject that you would hear people discussing, plenty. To be honest, you would more hear the condition of Down syndrome. I, too, was a bit ignorant on autism. I was a bit ignorant. And I'm not saying that enough work is not being done. I'm just saying, for me, moving around in society, I have not heard a lot about autism. You would more hear about Down syndrome. But I'm happy that more is being said and done, or probably we need to do more. We go get to that. But more is being said about autism. So tell us really, what is autism?
Autism really is, medically, it can be termed a spectrum disorder.
Right.
Having been a mother of 2 children who are autistic, I like to think about it as a special design because it is neuro-based.
Right.
So as much as, because my children are perfectly healthy,
Right.
they're not, medically unfit or anything like that. They run, they play, they jump, they laugh, and everything like
Normal behavior.
like regular
Right,
children.
right.
But their design is somehow different. So you may have co-occurring developmental issues happening there that needs to be addressed so that they can fit in and function in a typical world. When I discovered that something might be up with their development, it was because a lot of advocates had been doing work before talking about autism. So when they were toddlers, and I
Right.
realized that they were not meeting their milestones developmentally and so on, and I put one eyebrow up. And I started to look very closely. And in the back of your mind, you're thinking,
Wait,
okay,
is good. Yeah.
something might be up, but maybe children develop at their own pace. I didn't want to get too worried about it.
Right.
But there were certain things that were happening that caused great concern.
To raise
for
her
me.
eyebrow. Because, and let me see if I follow you. Because I am the mother of 2 children. And growing up, you would hear people say, so here now, what age your son started speaking? And so late? He started to talk so late? And for me, again, not having the knowledge of autism, I observe children do things at different times. Different children. Some children stay long to start to talk. Some cut teeth early, some cut teeth late.
Yeah.
So for me, as a mother, as I said, I observe children do things different times. So when people say, but how we stay so long to talk? I understand where you're coming from. You didn't want to say anything yet because we know of that pattern with children.
Right. So one of the good things that happened was that when my daughter was in preschool and my son was in daycare, the preschool also kept their eye on them. Because,
Very good.
Because at preschool, you're in a cohort. So they generally track how the group of children are going, how the 2-year-olds are going, how the 3-year-olds are going. And when one child is not following that track, they will call the parents in, and that's what they did with us. They called us in and they indicated to us, okay, we're noticing X, Y, and Z. We think you should check it out. And that is what happened.
That is how all preschools supposed to operate. Once you are properly trained.
Unfortunately, that's how it happened with me.
Well, okay. We will leave it there.
Yes.
Because I'm listening to you, and that sounds like really like well-trained teachers who would observe the development of the children, as you said, in specific age groups, to call the parent to say, listen, I find something wrong, your child not doing this, so, right?
Yeah.
But it might not be safe to say all preschools work like that, but they take a safe side. You said the preschool that your children went to. So moving on from there, you observe, or they at least alerted you to certain things that you wasn't too sure about.
Yeah.
So you got the confirmation from this preschool.
Right.
And where it went from there?
Well, they recommended that I see a speech therapist and an occupational therapist. And this is even before diagnosis. All right? Because I think one of the best decisions that we would have made if we noticed that something was not happening,
Right.
then address what's not happening. A diagnosis isn't immediately as important as addressing what's happening. So speech was delayed.
Right.
We got them assessed at a speech therapist. They found what was happening, and we started speech therapy immediately.
But let me ask you something. What about the parent or parents who cannot access or don't have the wherewithal, the financial capability to access a speech therapist? How do we deal with that?
At least in one RHA, which is at the Montauk Children's Hospital, there's a child developmental clinic. So later on, as my children grew, and I began to see more of the various traits that the various advocacy groups were addressing. Right. I took them to I made an appointment at the child developmental clinic. They got their appointment, and they saw one of the specialists there, and they at Montauk, and they were diagnosed.
So very important, at Montauk General Hospital, there's a child developmental clinic, right? We don't have all the details, but that's a start, because prior to this show, a couple people asked about children being diagnosed. So Montauk, we have, what Lyra is saying, at Montauk, there are things in place to deal with children who are suspected of autism.
Yeah.
So at Montauk, as you said later on, you took the move at first, and you saw a speech therapist, and later on, you enrolled at Montauk. And that helped a lot.
It did, and it's important, at least it was important for me, even though I was putting things in place to address their developmental needs, in terms of having a public record of what is going on with them, because sometimes you may need other services later on. Yes. And their record in Montauk is up to date, so that the doctors would see them from time to time. They would check with me as to what they're doing, what I'm doing to address their developmental needs. Right. And I'm very grateful that early intervention would have been the key to addressing their developmental, and I've seen my children move from strength to strength with their various milestones. Progress. Yeah.
Right. So you mentioned earlier on, you said it's neuro, and I know that means brain.
Yeah.
So it tells me, just in layman term, that all is not 100% neuro.
Well, we would say it's not 100% because we operate in a typical world.
Right.
And remember, medically they call it a spectrum disorder, which means there could be just as one to one other person would be different. You meet one autistic, there's no single description to describe all autistics.
Oh, we have variables.
There are variables in there. So as a mother of two autistics, my son and my daughter, they're very different. Right. But they need similar supports in different ways.
Right. So I was coming to that.
Yeah.
And I gather by your conversation that your daughter is the eldest.
Yes.
Right. So tell us, and I know we have mothers listening, we have parents listening, how were you able to differentiate the differences? Because you said they're not the same.
They're not the same.
Right.
So developmentally at first, my daughter walked very early. She colored. She spoke, but she spoke she spoke like in 2-word sentences for a very long time. She didn't have conversations too much at the age of 3.
Okay.
Whereas my son didn't speak at all.
At the age of 3?
At the age of 3. At the age of 2, 3, he was not speaking at all.
No words?
None.
That must have been frightening.
It was a little concerning. It was a little concerning. So, and I think they called me in. That's why they called me in, because the rest of the 2-year-olds going into 3 they were babbling away.
As we say, 2, 3 baby language.
Right. So those are some of the cognitive skills.
Right.
But they're also the social skills. And socially, they would shy away from other children. They would play by themselves. They may not play appropriately with a toy. So if you're holding a car, sometimes typically what happens with children who may be considered autistic, a 2-year-old playing with a car will play vroom, vroom, vroom like this. A child who's autistic may turn the car over and fling the wheels. And when we saw them doing, and my daughter had a way, she would take the cushions from the living room and line them up on the floor. And they had to be in a particular order, lined up on the floor. And once they were in the perfect order that she wanted them, she would run around it in circles. So they're playing, they're
things
happy,
are a little unusual.
But you have to keep, so I think keeping your eyes open as a parent is important so that you know what next step to take.
Yes.
Because if you're an autistic at birth, you're an autistic for life. But making the interventions that are necessary to help persons who are autistic grow into productive adults, early intervention is key. And making the interventions when necessary. You may need, sometimes there's some clinical psychologists for persons who don't want to wait on Mount Hope. And they have the resources.
They have the resources,
right?
important,
There are some clinical psychologists who are trained to assess, which autism and what are the other attending disorders, because sometimes they may be co-occurring disorders like ADHD or dyslexia.
You might break down that because
I and all. Attention deficit,
Right.
So in terms of, I haven't done the full psychoed for my daughter, but she's in public school.
Right.
And
important.
She's in public school. My son is not able to be in public school.
Hold on a second. I just want to tell people, listen, this is really important information. You need to share this live. I think this is very, very important because a lot of times parents out there don't have the wherewithal. They don't know how to recognize if there is something wrong with their children. And the information here is really going to help a lot of persons. And some people, I don't want to use the word shame, but sometimes it is that they don't want to speak out to say, I think something wrong with my infant. They don't want people to know that their children, has a condition or a disability. So share this information. We need to make people more aware. Yes, and that's the whole, I read a couple posts on Facebook and they say, okay, today's Autism Day and what? How are we making people more aware? Inclusion. So you was telling me about your daughter being in public school. I want to hear about that.
Right. That is a journey. It was
I am sure.
It was a very interesting journey in the beginning, and it continues to be a journey. And I think the perfect analogy would be if you were to have someone in the classroom, for example, who is blind, and there's a teacher who decides to write a note on the board and not speak while she's writing on the board. It means the child who is blind in the class is lost.
Of course.
Right? So for a child who is autistic, their brain works differently sometimes. And it's important that support systems are put in the classroom
to help them.
To help that child.
Yes.
Now, fortunately for me, I was able, and that's the importance of awareness and advocacy. I was able to advocate for an aid for my child in the classroom. The Ministry of Education supplies an aid for her in the classroom.
Okay,
so
then.
To keep up, because sometimes focusing
well
might
done
be
to the Ministry of Education. They say when you must get jacket and Jim a whole suit. Well done to the Ministry of Education. Yeah. I'm impressed.
Yeah.
So you had an aide
She has an aide in the
placed
classroom.
in the primary school
Yes.
to assist your daughter.
Yes.
I like that.
And even now, while they're doing online and so on, she has an aide assigned. So even in the times where her class is not meeting online, she meets with her privately online and goes
Great,
through
fantastic.
the assignments and so on. And it's awesome.
But what are some of the challenges your daughter, because I'm saying, even with the aid, I am sure there are still challenges.
There are.
So what are some of the challenges she has to deal with in the school? I mean, because she will speak with you when she comes home.
Yeah. Her school is a fairly large school. And I think...
Most
And it's a government
public,
school.
yeah.
Right? So I think that environment sometimes is overwhelming for her. And ordinarily, if I had more resources...
You would have sent her to a private school.
I probably would have done it where the classroom size is a lot smaller and so on, because she has difficulty socializing.
Oh.
She lives a fairly lonely existence, and it can be heartbreaking at times.
Right.
She spends her lunch hour alone.
Wow.
And
So she doesn't interact with the children well.
Very, very briefly, or very, at a minimal.
Wow.
At a minimal, and sometimes getting tasks done and staying on task. She doesn't have a learning disability, at least it doesn't appear that way. But, remember when we were in school and we learned timetables and we learned the vocabulary by rote and so on? Because her brain operates differently, I have to work around that.
You have to be more creative.
I have to be a lot more creative. And, I'm not a trained teacher, I'm just her mother.
You keep saying you're not trained, but go ahead.
Right? No, it's just... I had to find ways because
Right.
I have a vested interest in her becoming a successful human being.
Of course.
Right? So when I realized we were drilling some vocabulary words some evening, and I realized, wait a minute, this drilling it is not working.
It's not working.
It's not working. I said, okay, we wrote down the word. I took a big drawing book. I had a drawing book there. I lined it up. I said, okay, this is the word. This is what it means. I want you to draw on this side what it means. And we took extra time. And for each word, she drew a picture of
Right.
what the word meant. And she had a test the next day, and she did very well on the test the next day.
Excellent.
Because drawing it out, she's very right brain, because she's a fantastic artist. So drawing it out we were able to...
She was able to grasp the word.
I'm looking at the picture on the screen. And this is actually my favorite, my very, very favorite work of it. If you look very closely, that's an 8x8 tile on my kitchen floor.
Well, I'm seeing the two lines and I'm wondering. I said, but what is that?
Right, that's a tile on the floor. There was a night she couldn't sleep, and she got up and she dismembered my coquille broom.
So wait now, that what they call the flex.
Yes.
That is the coquille broom there that she
Yes.
used.
And being a little girl, she loves Disney, so that's your Disney castle.
Oh, wow. Wow.
Yeah.
She's very imaginative.
Yeah, I had to take a picture of it immediately.
Of
and
course.
Then eventually
Of
we put it on, we stuck it on a piece of paper, and I have it saved because...
Wow, wow.
Yeah.
So I don't know. And I know we're going to look at some more creative work from Lyra's daughter. We're going to look at some more creative work because, as you said, nothing is wrong with her really in terms of learning. It is just the pattern.
Yeah.
You spoke about when you draw things, she grasps at it.
Yeah.
But listen, whilst I was in the training department, I'm just sharing this with you, and we talk about children, but I was attached to the training department when I was in HSSE. And we have people who learn differently. There were
Correct.
adults in the class. You see that set of words and slides and all them PowerPoint and things? No way. Pictogram. They're grasping it.
Yes.
Pictogram. Put up slides with pictures and they're good to go. So I'm saying even adults, right? That is not restricted to children alone. I don't know.
We all have our learning styles.
You know, we like to say who normal and who abnormal, but I ain't going to go into that now. But we love to say who normal and who abnormal. And I believe each of us, we carry some deficiency.
Well, I would say that we're neurodiverse, and I even before coming onto this show, I thought of my garden, and I was sharing with you earlier.
Yes.
That in my garden there are plants that I don't need to really take care of. Dry season, rainy season,
They're surviving.
Fine. They're fine, right? But we also have orchids.
Need a lot of care.
And you can't just leave orchids.
No.
You have to attend to them. You have to get the right amount of sunlight, the right amount of water.
Yes.
Depending on where you put them, they thrive. Sometimes if you just leave them, they don't thrive. And I like to think that that's what autism is, because I have 3 children. I have the elder 2 who are autistic, and I have a 6-year-old who is neurotypical.
Right.
Right?
Or normal, as we would like to say.
As we would like to say, you know?
And how he relates to them? How
well, he
does
came,
the 6-year-old...
He came into that world, so he relates to them, you know? And as he grows older, he learns more and more how to navigate around them. And he's very encouraging. He's
great.
He's
supportive.
He's very, very supportive.
He's like smaller brother, have to act the role of big brother.
And eventually he's going to be the big brother.
Yeah. Master Control, could we have another slide? Could we have another one of the drawing? Right. So we have this picture here, and I am seeing this is a hibiscus flower, I can tell.
Yes.
It's somewhat closed, the hibiscus flower.
So she turned it upside down and she picked another weed from my yard and she put that inside and she came and said, Mommy, look at a ballerina. And in her mind, she is seeing a ballerina. So, yeah, that's...
This is what she... And this is what?
Okay, I have to describe this. I don't know how many of the viewers would have seen Toy Story 4. But in Toy Story 4, there was a character called Forky, which is really that disposable fork that we use, but it's shaped like a spoon.
Right.
But it has
tips.
It has
end
tips
like a fork.
Like
right.
a fork. Right. She took one of those and made this doll with pieces of twine for the hair, pipe cleaners for the dress. And if you understand the size of a spork, then you would understand...
That's detail work.
Then you will understand that cell phone that she made out of Play-Doh, because it's very, very tiny. You know, so her motor skills for creating...
That's awesome.
Yeah,
that is awesome work. That is awesome. That is really awesome. Because as I said, it is detailed. Now we have some drawings here.
Yeah.
Where we have a happy face. She's expressing.
Yeah.
Yes.
And again, if you're familiar with Disney, those are the main characters from the movie Inside Out. Is one of her favorite movies. And she did that freehand. She didn't have to trace.
She didn't trace or anything.
No. And it's from memory from looking at the movie.
Wow.
So.
Wow.
Yeah. Right. So that's the spork.
Okay.
So that was the original incarnation. And then she said, maybe I could make something more
and
out
she
of
took,
it.
look at that.
Yeah.
Wow. This child is awesome. She's awesome.
She is.
She is awesome. So, I mean, she's very artistic. And, well, I think you should really pay attention to that.
Exactly.
To harness that.
Exactly.
Right?
Because, you know, we live in a world that places so much value on the academics.
Of course,
and,
yes.
I mean, I'm an academic, so I understand the value. But at the same time, the traditional roles that we want our children, you know, you have to grow up to be a doctor, you have to grow up to be a lawyer, an engineer, an accountant, and so on.
Everybody cannot go down
Right?
that road.
And the thing is, she doesn't present a difficulty in learning the traditional maths and so on.
Right.
But if this is what she loves, then this is what she loves.
It gives her a chance to express.
Exactly.
You said your son is a bit different to your daughter.
Yes, he is.
You want to share some of
all right. So
your experiences?
He will be what you would term non-verbal.
So he doesn't speak.
So non-verbal does not mean that you can't speak. At least in my case. In my son's case, non-verbal means that he chooses when to speak.
Is that right?
That is correct. So he's 9 currently, and he's been in speech therapy since he was about 3. At the time when he started speech therapy, his communication skills were very poor. He wouldn't hold eye contact. He wouldn't point to something. He wouldn't indicate anything. Now, his communication is much better than what
in terms of how he relates.
How he relates.
Right.
Okay? So, socially, he still prefers to be a loner. Sometimes he plays with his siblings, sometimes he prefers to play alone. And I see him at school. He goes to a private school. And
He's in a public school as well?
No, he's not in a public school.
Okay.
And he's not in a public school, not because it wouldn't be possible in another space, but I think we're not there as yet. And
we mean in Trinidad
and Tobago.
Yes.
And I long for that time.
We are not as there. We're not there yet as it relates to his type of autism, because your daughter is in a public school.
Correct.
Right?
Correct. Because she's verbal.
Right. But because of the challenge with him, choosing when to speak.
Choosing when to speak.
Now, let me ask you something.
And even regulating emotions and regulating behavior, something they call executive functioning, you know, your ability to control your emotions or to just know time and place.
Right.
As we speak. So
don't forget, you all can call in. You all can call in and ask my guest whatever question you need to ask her. You're free to call in. The number is going to go up on the screen in a bit, and you're free to call. Don't forget. So I want to find out a little more about that, choosing when to speak, because for me, it's sending a message of kind of insubordination. Like some children, they, you know, let's take normal children. And forgive me here, I am just as ignorant as a lot of people about autism.
In the autism world,
some children, as the old people say, plain stubborn. So they choose when to do things. This is the line you're going along? When you say he chooses when to speak?
No. It's his design. That's just how he is. All right? So it's not him being rude or insubordinate or anything like that.
He has no control.
Well, it's his design. I wouldn't like to say it because he's controlling how he's communicating. So he will communicate when it's absolutely necessary.
But you know, we have people, normal people who like that?
Well, they might be autistic and not know it. Because they've always been autism. It's just now we have a little more awareness, more advocacy, more discussion around it.
Yeah.
You know, so we
may have adults who...
We do have adults who are autistic and
were never diagnosed with autism. Plenty of us who feel we normal. And don't take this bad. I said this before, bringing my guests on the show. I believe there are adults out there who are living with autism, unaware. And my guest is now saying that, right? Because there are a lot of people who I know hardly speak. Not that they're dumb, they choose when to. As far as they're concerned, they will only talk when it's absolutely necessary.
Yeah.
Right? And they just, in their shell, they live like a hermit. They don't mix much with people.
Yeah.
Right?
But thankfully, when you make the necessary interventions, like there's some professions that I would have probably not known about or taken for granted before. And the professionals that my children see, the speech and language pathologists, the occupational therapist, the behavior therapist.
And all these are private services that you have to pay for.
However, I would say this. I used to be at the Ministry of Social Development, and in the middle of 2019, no, it was late in 2019, the Ministry of Social Development implemented a disability grant for minors with disabilities, so that...
That's Ministry of Social Development.
That's Ministry of Social Development.
And that would include autism?
It does include autism. So your question...
You heard that? You heard that. So the Ministry of Social Development, persons, if you have children with the condition of autism, you can access a grant from the Ministry of Social Development. Yes. Of course, I don't have all the details, but the Ministry of Social Development, I know they have a Facebook page, and take it from there and follow up on the information. So you're getting information that you probably didn't know. Yes, you can access a grant to assist you.
So, I mean, since it was very difficult before managing their therapeutic needs.
Right, but now you get assistance. Look at that. I'm really, yes.
So it goes a long way. It goes a long way. But as I was indicating about the professionals, I have profound respect for the speech therapists that work with children
I would
on,
imagine.
yeah,
I would imagine.
and the occupational therapists and so on.
But we have these persons also in Moncton. I remember you identify Moncton as an institution that offers
I'm not
assistance
certain
as well.
because I would access mine privately.
Right.
So I'm not in a
You're not-
position
you're not
to
certain.
answer that question. But having them have a public record was important for me. So that's why they're part of the clinic.
Well, yes.
You
And
know?
Moncton, as far as you know, is the only institution?
I believe there's a clinic in South Trinidad. It may be Pleasantville. I could be corrected. But at the Pleasantville Health Facility. But there is a South-based clinic. In addition to that, the child guidance unit out of the Ministry of Health also provides some kind of therapeutic support to persons. Well, that would be in the public domain. So, but by the time I would have checked with them and they asked me what I was accessing for the children, and I told them, they said, well, you're doing what you have to do, so, you don't need anything.
Well, yes,
additional,
any responsible
Yeah.
parent would not sit down,
and wait.
tough as it may.
Yeah.
Any responsible parent will make a move to see about your children, to see about your child or your children, right? And you made the move, and then, of course, you're getting the assistance from the grants now, but you made the move. And I said it at the beginning of the show. You keep saying I am not a professional, right? And
I'm a professional, but I'm not a professional in this
I know,
area.
scientific trained professional. And normal children, rare normal children now could be challenging. Children who supposed to have their good hearing and understanding, it's a challenge. And you have to take care of 2 autistic children. Plus you are a corporate citizen. How do you balance? And you must have a social life. Come on, if it's once in a blue moon, you had to go out there and distress, right? Because I look at your social media pictures and you're with your children a lot, and I know you said it before, it's no issue saying also you are a divorcee. So you've been through a divorce, you have the 2 autistic children, so you're a single parent, you have a professional life, and you have to balance all of that. Tell us, because, the feminine drive is about empowering and encouraging women. And her experience could help to encourage a mother out there who may be in the same position, whether it's a child that suffers with the condition of Down syndrome or autistic. We need to have these success stories out there to know that you can do it. You can do it as a single parent. Help is always better, but you can do it. So tell us, how, Lyra, how you does manage?
In the beginning, I was very anxious and I felt quite overwhelmed with what was before me.
I could imagine.
And I think it took a conversation with God that I had, and I said, "Hear what? Them is your children."
You're talking to God here?
Yes. Right? These children that you have entrusted to me, I am the steward, but they're not really mine.
Well, yes.
They're not really mine.
True.
They're his. So I said, they're yours. So you have to help me navigate this.
And take care of them children.
Because they are yours.
You know that is real prayers there, right?
And I think that had to be, I identify that as the beginning of understanding what it is I had to do. Not to get all upset and anxious and overwhelmed by, okay, I have to do this and I have to do this by myself and so on. So that was the beginning. Through it, continuing from there, is just understanding that I am not alone.
Alone.
I have a village. I have people, some people I've never even met. Some of my closer friends, when I tell them, okay, I have my children and they've been diagnosed with autism, they say, you know what, you should talk to so-and-so.
Nice.
Me and so
It's a networking.
Yeah, so-and-so and I became friends. You know who is so-and-so? So-and-so. And I have a village of people who are walking the same road.
Yes.
And we are encouraging each other.
It takes a village to raise a child.
That's one.
Yes.
2, I have an extremely supportive mother. I cannot say it. She's watching now. I cannot say it.
Hi, Mommy.
I cannot say it enough. I have an extremely supportive mother.
Yes, that support system is
Yeah,
important.
and she loves her grandchildren, and her grandchildren love her. And
You couldn't do it without them.
no, I couldn't do it.
But I like that conversation, with your divine creator, because, as I said, that is the real prayers. For me, prayers is not reciting. That's prayers too, but I think real prayers is talking to God by whatever name, your innermost feeling, saying, here, what's going on now, this is my situation, and you had to fix it because who I go turn to? That is prayers, boy. Right?
That's what I did.
And you pour out your true feelings because, look, listen to me. I gave birth to 2 autistic children. You had to help me here, No, real.
Yeah.
Real.
And things have been working out.
Things have been working
Things
out.
have been working out.
Things,
and
it will continue to work
out.
out.
And I'm very grateful for how things have been working out. Because it was not an easy road.
Yes. And you don't have to go into it if you don't want to, but I'm going to ask you a question. Men more so, and I'm not knocking the men, this is reality. Men, more or less, they feel a how when they have children who have a disability. They ain't going out the road with the child, child home. Men, they taught more than women. A woman, listen, however the child come out, that is my child. A woman toting her child, she going wherever. Without knowing the details of your relationship, your past relationship, and what went on in the home, you think that having 2 autistic children out of 3 would have contributed to the demise of your marriage?
In all fairness, I don't think so. I think it was a lot more complex than that.
Okay.
And
Good.
but I would add that having to now deal with 2 autistic children was an additional stressor. So it wasn't the cause, but certainly it would have been a stressor.
Let me take a call. Good evening, caller, and welcome to the Feminine Drive.
Yeah, good evening. Hello?
Hello, I'm hearing you loud and clear.
Yeah, I just want to commend you ladies for a very inspiring and beautiful program.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thanks for your blessings. Yes. Well, we have to stay positive. In our own little corner of the universe, we have to do what it takes to inspire others. Patience as we go along. Good evening, caller, and welcome to the Feminine. Oh, I lost that call. So, Lyra was saying that, honestly, I didn't think that contributed to the demise of the marriage, and I'm happy to hear that. But you said it would have added some pressure. It would have, right. So it wasn't the greatest pressure, but, it would have added some pressure. And as I said, these things are difficult to deal with. We are only human.
But you asked me a question earlier about how I deal with it, and I think the main thing that I do now is understand that I can't pour from an empty cup. So that I have not forgotten that I am an individual, that I am a woman.
Don't forget that at all.
I have not forgotten that. So when it's time to take that time out, I take the time out, rejuvenate or recharge, because you don't let your phone go down to 0 and leave it. You have to recharge your phone.
That's right.
So I take the time out, recharge as best as I can, so I can go back and continue to do what I have to do.
You need to keep, you need to keep in a good place. Let me put it quite simple.
Yeah.
You need to keep in a good place, because I love to say, only generous, we like to be generous and feel we could help here and help there. If we ain't good, we can't help nobody. Yeah. If we not in a good place, we cannot help anybody. Don't fool yourself, because you're just not good for your own self. So sometimes we need to take that time out. We need to put on the phone. We need to not answer it sometimes. We need to say no sometimes. I ain't going here. Spend time with yourself. And it would mean that you did that or doing that while you could, keep all of that, because your job you have to go to work. Was there ever a time when, work, how to put it? You reach into work late, stress on the job because of trying to manage the children at home, get them off to school. Was there ever a time that things were clashing with your job?
For the most part, I would have had understanding supervisors. There was one little window of time where it was really very difficult, and I just powered through it. But I had a supervisor that was not very understanding, but thankfully that was...
You must get one in the bunch.
Thankfully that was a small window of time, you know. But, you know, now
pulled through.
I pulled through, and now that we have the pandemic that we're living through,
right.
Thankfully there's been some degree of flexibility.
Great.
We have been able to manage both, you know, so.
And I say, you know, the pandemic is shedding a light on a lot of positives in terms of how we could do things different.
Yeah.
Even before the pandemic, they're talking about flexi time. Everybody cannot come to work for 8 o'clock with all these vehicles on the road. It's impossible, yeah. Right? Some come for 8, some come for 9. I think a lot of organizations been trying that before. Right? And look how we're doing it nice and easy now. So the take COVID was to really drive home that point. Everybody can reach to work for 8. So thank God for COVID that you got that flexibility. So you're working from home now.
Home and office. Home and office. And I do have support with the children and their schooling. I do it the best way that I could. Again, the power of the village, you know. With friends, I have friends who are teachers. If something is going, because I have to do a lot of hands-on work with the children.
Right.
So if I'm a little unsure of something, I check with their teachers. I can check with friends as well to see, you know, if I'm on track with whatever topic and so on. But
let me ask you, and I know I'm aware you are a public servant, so I'm trying my best. I want to put you in a bacchanal with your job. But honestly, are you satisfied in terms of how much is being done in Trinidad and Tobago as it pertains to autism and children or persons who has the condition of autism? Are you satisfied with what is being done so far in terms of accessibility to centers that can diagnose children, etc.? Are you satisfied?
I think, honestly, that...
I would appreciate that.
Yeah. That I think what we're faced with is a difficulty in putting ourselves in someone else's shoes. Mm-hmm. We live in a typical world, and all of our systems and structures, infrastructure and so on, they're built to accommodate the typical person. True. So from the time you're not faced with something that is typical, it's difficult, because remember, we talk about systems and government, and but really these systems are made up of people.
True.
So thankfully, there was a time when I was at a position where I could have been of influence, because sometimes there are people making decisions for a community like the disability community.
Right.
But they themselves don't have a disability.
Right.
Right. So it might, or they may not be necessarily close to someone.
So how much could you really understand to
right.
advocate?
Exactly.
So you still answer me. If you're satisfied.
I'm not entirely satisfied.
You're not entirely satisfied.
But I will say this though. I think we are at a place now where we were not maybe 10 years ago.
Well,
because
yes.
there are so many various advocacy groups having their voices heard and making their presence felt.
Yes.
That I think by now, if you're not listening to them, you really don't want to listen to them.
I like that honesty. If you're not, so if you ain't hear what they're saying, is because you don't want to hear what they're saying. In the year 2021, to be so ignorant, and we're talking the level of persons in authority, correct?
Correct.
Right. We're not talking the layman. We're talking persons in authority, the people who are the say. If in the year 2021, you ain't listening, I mean.
And you know, I like to think of what we've done, for example, with wheelchair ramps.
Yes.
You know?
And that took a while.
It did.
That took a while.
But it happened.
But it happened.
Right? And sometime last year I sprained my ankle. And buildings that had a wheelchair ramp made it easier for me. Now, my sprained ankle was temporary, right? But the fact that you've made an infrastructural change to accommodate someone with a disability, everyone
Benefited.
And
Correct.
this is what advocates have to show those in authority, or even those who are implementing, like the teacher in the classroom, okay, or the HR professional at the office. When you make an allowance for someone with a disability, be it intellectual or physical, everyone benefits.
That's the thing.
Everyone benefits.
Yes.
So that in a classroom with the learning styles, all right, I think it's unfortunate that now you have teachers who in infants who thinks it's okay just to get up and write on the board and expect the children who are 6 years old to take down notes. You're supposed to take 6-year-olds outside. They have to jump up and down. They have to run around.
It's more motor skills.
Right, and then they have some of them need to move, right?
Yeah.
If you do that, it means everyone benefits. If you stick to one
Mode
mode
of
of
teaching.
teaching, then
That's right.
okay, so that is really what needs to be done, is that understanding that the more you put systems in place to accommodate those with vulnerabilities, because really and truly, if you create an environment, the social environment, the infrastructural environment, where it only accommodates persons who are abled or persons without disabilities, then really and truly, you know,
You're discriminated in a way.
And then you have to understand that a person with a disability is a person. I remember going to a boat ride a couple years ago, and people go on boat rides to dance.
Really?
And what touched me on that boat ride, there was a squad of guys in wheelchairs. And it occurred to me that they also want to come and have fun and enjoy the music.
Of course.
They may not be able to get out of the wheelchair, but they need that.
They need to socialize as well.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. And again, as I said, that's where the inclusion comes in.
That is where inclusion comes in. So that ideally, there may be few schools, because my son goes to a private school, and it is a costly venture to pay for your son to go to primary school. But if we put systems in place over time to include
in the public school
setting, to include children with various, because it's not impossible. It's done in other parts of the world, where you have aides, there are speech therapists at school, there are individual education plans for the children. So even if a child is in a class with neurotypicals, when that child is being examined or tested or assessed, they're tested on their own merit. So a teacher can map, okay, this child was at this point last term, now he's at this point, therefore there is success in something that we did. And it's important that children, because I know that there are institutions and schools for children with disabilities, and particularly autistic children, but I would love to see a world where my son can interact with a neurotypical child, and that the neurotypical child grows up understanding that we live in a world where there are people who are different from myself.
Different from me.
Exactly.
And that is okay. You keep talking about teachers and the teachers being able to work with different benchmarks, etc. Do we have in the public system, not private schools, do we have teachers in the public system who are trained to deal with children with autism?
To my knowledge, the teachers that go through their academic training for their profession.
Yes, this is normal training now.
Right, normal training. To my knowledge, it is included. Sometimes it's included as a basic course, and there are times where the individual student can choose to specialize because it's an area they may like. So the aide that was assigned to my daughter in the earlier part of her primary school career, her contract came to an end, and because she loves the area, she has now gone to UTT and she's specializing in special ed.
Fantastic. So
right?
then the teacher,
So there are people coming out, and I've participated in various
workshops, etc.
Not just workshops, but focus groups for students who are getting their academic training in education, who want to focus and specialize on special ed, so they understand what to do in the classroom. So people there are the professionals out there who know, and it's just for those resources to be channeled in the right direction.
I hope you all are sharing, or you all would have shared the live. I haven't checked my phone much. The conversation is so interesting, even for me. You know, it is really a new area of learning. So much to learn in this life. I hope you have shared the live. We need to work together to help each other. You heard what Lyra said, that because of the support, the strong support system, the village helping her. And by the word village, she means even friends, close friends. You know, that tight networking. That is how she's able to manage her life, being the mother of 2 autistic children. So nobody's an island. We need each other. We need each other. Remember that. So share the live. Sometimes your friends can't watch it tonight. They go watch it tomorrow when they have time. Make sure and share the live. So Lyra, we kind of out of time, but do we have groups, advocacy groups in Trinidad and Tobago as it relates to autism? Would you like to share a couple of them with us so persons can access them, the Facebook handles, etc.?
All right. So there's the Autistic Society of Trinidad and Tobago. They've been very supportive to me in the past.
Yes.
And from information that they share, it continues to be a source of support.
Great.
There's Autism Spirit that I highly recommend.
Autism?
Autism Spirit.
Autism Spirit.
You can look for them on Facebook.
Right.
And the information that they share has been very useful to me in understanding my children as individuals and understanding them so that I don't necessarily step on their toes, because they're little people. Children are little people.
Yes,
and if that is their neurodesign,
they need the space.
And
they
that
need
is their
space,
design. Yeah. All right. There's the Autism Parents Association of Trinidad and Tobago. They're a very strong advocacy group. There's Cause and Effect.
Wow. Have a lot of groups there.
Yeah, a lot.
Yeah,
and
that's about 4 groups you call there.
Yeah, and I mean, there are many more, but those are the few that come to mind in terms of what kind of support I've been able to, look towards.
And that tells me then the population of children with autism is fairly large.
Well, it's a spectrum. So there might be children on one end of the spectrum and there are children on the other end of the spectrum. So,
Lyra,
yes.
On this Good Friday evening, I want to thank you very, very much again, as I said, for leaving the little people at home. And
I think they're also watching. So hi, little people.
Hello, little people. You want to say hello to your children?
Silently, Johannes and Zidane. Mommy loves you very much.
Oh, I am sure she loves you. I want to thank you so, so much again, as I said, for coming here and sharing the information. And you are a professional. You're a very strong woman.
Thank you.
You know, everybody's strong in their own way, but sometimes when you hear a next woman's story, you say, boy, I wonder if I could have dealt with that boy. Because I'm going to tell you something. I am the mother of 2 children, and you see the back chat and the stubbornness, I never used to take much of that. And there are times when I felt, well, oh gosh, I can't deal with this thing now. Especially my son, he was so hyper, the boy wouldn't stay still. I hardly used to take him anywhere because of that. He just so cold, I used to say wild, and now he quiet. So when you hear of somebody else's story, you have 2 autistic children, plus the 6-year-old, plus your life, you have to go to work, you need to pay the bills, and you're managing it and looking as beautiful as ever, all right? I want to tell you again, congratulations, you're doing mighty well.
Thank you.
Right, God's strength to you. And to you, the viewers, on this Good Friday, thank you very much again for taking time out and joining me on the Feminine Drive. I hope it was very informative. I hope you learned something that you could share with somebody, right? You know, it's about empowerment. It's about educating. Starting from next Friday, we're going to have a series on the Feminine Drive called Men and Their Mothers. Yes. So for 5 Fridays, we're bringing in men, the masculine energy coming to talk about their mothers, relationship with their mothers. Yes, man, very exciting. We have some nice males lined up for you. Yeah? Some notable ones in Trinidad and Tobago. So that's from next Friday, men and their mothers, leading straight up to Mother's Day. So thank you again for joining me, Warrior Empress, your host on the Feminine Drive. Thanks for all your love and support. And be safe. See you next Friday.
Oh